3,000 subs? Q&A time. What does your typical work day / week look like? How do you allocate your time? I generally shoot videos on the weekends. That's why I'm in various states of disrepair. Usually I will have just come from playing with kids, or I was just outside in the rain, or video stuff happens weekends, firm stuff happens during the week. Stuff with my accountant community happens kind of sprinkled throughout the week. Hair tutorial. I always joke that all the hair products are under NDA, but maybe we should just, okay. Here's the deal. All starts with the morning routine. So I'm in the shower. You gotta start with 2 really small drops of make sure you get it really in there. You leave that for about 20 seconds. Then you just want pretty much and just leave it for the rest of the morning. Get out of the shower, all that. You're just gonna leave it up there. Other thing I do before bed is I've got this little vial of serum. Just get right between your fingers. That's all you need. Most people use too much. You just right between your fingers. And if you're a guy, just first few times you do it, you're gonna get some numbness in the face. That's normal. The trick is where to get it. I've got a guy who lives in but that's my source, you gotta find your own. What's the #1 challenge with your current firm right now that you'd love to solve? So our firm's got around 1,500 clients. It is big enough to where changing processes is a lot of work. It's a lot of inertia going in the direction of the way it's always been. Team of about 40. So in a perfect world, it would be nice if it were more agile. That being said, there's good things with having a larger firm. Man, if there's one thing I would really like to change right now, it is retraining all of the clients on how they provide information and how we request information from them. That's been done in various different ways over the past 8 decades this firm's been around. If I could get everybody to do that the same way, oh baby, make a big difference. 2 questions. At what age do you plan on putting the kids to work so that you can start deducting their appearance fees? They have been turning up in a lot of videos lately, haven't they?
Fire yourself.
That is a riff on TikTok tax advice. Don't do that. Yeah, there are ways to do that, but it usually doesn't save you much tax. Never. Almost certainly never, Ashley. I'm also an S-Corp, so there isn't really any savings to be had. Notion is so confusing. If I was going to take one class to master it, do you have a favorite? No, because the beauty of Notion is the inherent self-expression that comes from it. The fact that you can do anything. And that's where most people usually fall off the bus right away. That resonates for some people, it doesn't for others. Thomas Frank released a framework for Thomas Frank, the YouTuber, how he manages his whole life in Notion. I will say, I did pick up a couple things like that in the early days to see how other people set things up, and it was kind of eye-opening. But the downside to that also is that can be confusing. That's legendary difficulty Notion setup when maybe all I'm capable of right now is the beginner stuff. So upsides and downsides to that. Are you ever gonna build an automation that interfaces with the cornballer? Good question, I think an important question.
There's some hot son of a look what you did! Oh. You popped it! What's wrong with you?
You know what I've always been fascinated by is more physical automation stuff. I have never dabbled in that at all, but I would love to, robotic arms, stuff like that. So Don, maybe that ought to be a 2023 goal. Tell us how to make a partner make you a partner and explain what a tax manager operates. Okay, it's very specific. I would say if you have to convince a partner to make you a partner, then you're better off doing your own thing. Partner. If you have to convince someone else of your value, then they're never going to value what you do the same way that you do. And that's fine, that's life sometimes. There's 100 different ways to do what we do in this profession, and your work style may be super valuable to a certain type of person that is different than that partner. So many philosophies on how we can do this stuff. There's a lot of people on that partner track right now who are better off building their own track. And if you feel a lot of friction in that track, really if you feel any friction in that track, do your own thing. I get it's scary. There's gonna be 6 months of white knuckling, but I think you are almost always better off creating something of your own design. If you were to build your ideal firm from scratch today, what type of clients and how would you go about it? For me, I'm a real software nerd kind of guy. My ideal firm right now would probably be pulling in clients for whom I can automate things. So a hybrid of an accounting firm versus productized automation support. So what do those people have in common? You probably look for platforms like Salesforce, ClickUp, the common hubs of information where you've got great API support and can probably automate a bunch of stuff for them. Team chat also. If you got clients using team chat like Teams or Slack, so many things that can be pulled into that channel that are useful. Approvals, pulling that stuff together is just really valuable. So for me, probably be something where I can build passive product revenue. But obviously that's not the same for everybody. Love caseware for trial balance and tax code reports. Would love to create something free with Excel or Airtable. You probably could. I will say a few years ago, something like that was more compelling than it is now due to integrations that are being built out with tax softwares. Right now we're getting systems that are using RPA-based integration with your tax software. That is like integrating with your software as if a human user, like the same way a human user would do that, literally goes through all the prompts and puts the information in there. The integrations we've had with tax softwares in the past have been more basic. And in my experience, when you would import that trial balance in, you always knew those 20 things you had to go in and do manually still. But integrations now are getting better because they're done with RPA. And from a practical standpoint, building your own integration with your tax software, that is a big lift. That's why I'm more in favor of services like Tally4, who are building their own integrations with all those tax suites, handle the trial balance stuff, but then we'll push that into the tax software as well. The fact that you can build a version of something for free is never a reason to build that thing. What's life like inside the shop? Retention, morale, how camaraderie is supported, internal growth, performance management, partner dynamics. My firm's like a real mixed family. We've bought out a number of partners, and so you've got a mix of people who were hired by past partners, were hired by current partners, and that's a sticky thing. It's very scary for people who are hired by someone who's on the way out, and it's a lot of work to like get that to feel like one cohesive team. Morale's a struggle, but like for all the reasons that it's a struggle for everybody in our industry right now. I think the best thing that I can do as a leader is be responsible about capacity. A lot of morale issues just stem from capacity. The fact that we've piled more and more on over the last few years, and that's become the new normal, rather than keeping it at something reasonable. So in a firm of our size, I see my job as ensuring that people aren't pushed too hard, creating space for team building, the fun stuff that some people will engage with, some people won't, and understanding your team on a deep enough level to know what does success look like for them at this stage in life. Does the intersection of where they want to go and what I need, like, is there still an intersection there? I think a lot of bad employment relationships stem from a lack of alignment on what's good for someone right now versus what the company needs, and kind of being in denial about that. So I try to be careful about who we hire and ensure that what's best for them next is the thing that we need to kind of get to our next whatever. What's your automation infrastructure look like? So many different parts of our business. So on the tax side, it's pretty limited. On tax, you are kind of beholden to whatever the native integrations there are, unless you build your own RPA integrations, which I don't get super jazzed about. On the CAS side, this is actually why I love CAS. So much more flexibility there because the accounting ledgers have good APIs, like you can actually automate things around those. So on the CAS side, ClickUp is our back end. That's not true. It's a combination of ClickUp and Airtable, but the task management happens in ClickUp. That's how we push stuff to Ignition for renewals. But I'm super hot to trot to get on the Keeper 0 beta. Very hot on Keeper, if you haven't noticed. Automated childcare. Luke, if you find a way, let me know. I have a 1, a 4, and a 5-year-old. It is the very best thing in my life. Teaches you to embrace like a whole different level of chaos and flexibility, and is kind of like a built-in way to ensure you never get too selfish because you don't have a choice. Those little things get you out of bed the same day every morning. They don't sleep in on the weekends. And however you think that day is gonna go, it's gonna be different. Can you use Airtable for trial balance and tax code grouping schedules? Yes, but I probably wouldn't for the reasons we went through. The most valuable part of a trial balance utility is the integration with the tax software. And building something like that with Airtable isn't really practical. What matters the most for you when you hire skills, personality, potential, any employees that actually surprise you and why? First part of that question, it's really the vibe check and whether there's a track record of success. So a great example, one of the best hires I made in the past was someone who I could see had joined a small firm. 6 months after that, they cut loose half the firm because one of the partners retired, and they retained this person. So I could see from there, within 6 months, they were ready to keep her over half of the team they were letting go. Without any actual work experience with people, I try to look at like, can they just get stuff done? None of the stuff that we do is like rocket science. It takes time to learn, but I would rather have someone who's like not afraid of change, the kind of people who you can like throw something at and they can go figure it out. Those are the people I work best with because to a fault, I'm not a micromanager like to the extreme. Like I need to be more hands-on than I am. So I've learned the people who I work most successfully with are the more independent types. Any employees that actually surprise you? Yeah, I mean always. Like hiring accountants such a shoot. That's why I'm such a big advocate for trial days. There's a like base level of attention to detail that I think 90% of humans don't have that you really need in what we do. It's not a replacement for like review processes and stuff like that, but if there's an area that has probably been the hardest, we've just had people who we love, who are great people, very capable people, but just didn't have the level of attention to detail that would ever let them be the final set of eyes on a project before it goes out the door. And if they can't get to that point, there's a really low ceiling on what we can do with them, unfortunately. Surprise on the positive side, I will say I've had great experience hiring really nice, kind people. So much of management is just understanding the people who work for you, understanding where they're at in their lives, and just kind of the emotional intelligence that goes into understanding, oh, this person has a young family, or this person's going through this or that, and accommodating like accordingly. High emotional intelligence, like kind people get that. So I've had really good success putting those types of people in mentorship roles. If you go back to college and take another major, what would you do instead? So I was 3 years into a computer science major. I never intended to do accounting. Does anybody? I had some bad professors that convinced me I was bad at that stuff. And I pulled the plug. First time in my life I'd gotten like a D on anything, and I was like, we gotta change something here. So I'd probably go back and do computer science just because I enjoy the automation stuff. I would probably end up more or less in the same place, like automating knowledge work, but with a deeper, more technical level of expertise, I could do a little more than I can now. I don't know if that's the case or not. A huge part of what makes my automation expertise valuable is the technical skills that I have in tax and accounting, stuff like that. If I just have automation skills, I don't know how valuable they are. So I don't know, maybe like a core like technical thing, maybe that's the better degree. I don't know. Can't think of any good serious questions, so I'll leave you with this one. Is you and Logan's wedding? If you ask Logan, it's already happened. If all the apps you use were humans, who would win in a free-for-all brawl and why? Ooh, that's a good one. Okay, well the tax software would be just completely spaced out. Didn't even realize the fight had started. So tax software doesn't stand a chance. I'm trying to think of what's like the best Swiss Army knife sort of software. Notion's like the emo, introspective person that nobody really understands, but is very capable. I'd say Zapier is probably the jock that like everybody knows about and is very powerful, but in a fight with Make, I think Make wins. Make's scrappy. So I would probably say Make. Corby, how do you make your hair so soft and supple? From the shower to gel, give us your secrets, picks, or we won't believe you. Just did a full rundown earlier in the video. Logan, I had to sign an NDA when he told me what he uses. Yeah, no, you don't just give that stuff away. I think it's high time for a backstory reveal. Okay, it all started in July 1998. 10-pound baby was born with a perfect pompadour, and it was clear from an early age, I was a baby that was comfortable on camera. I guess building on the college story, so I transitioned out of computer science after junior year, had a whole pile of credits, enough to get 2 undergrads in 4 years, and just picked the 2 that like were the shortest path from where I was. And that was business and accounting. I got an internship at an accounting firm that paid better than what my buddies were making. I still haven't found a way to leave. So I did a few years at a small firm, moved to the firm I'm at now, grew that firm a bunch, kind of panicked, realizing I was gonna have to buy a bunch of the stuff I had just built, proceeded to buy the stuff I had just built, and phased out all but a couple of the partners. On the media and tech side, man, 3 years ago, I wasn't on social media at all, and I think this will be like relatable for so many accountants who I hear my videos, if anything, can be demotivating to people thinking about doing video, because they're like, oh, how could I ever be that good? If you've seen, I share like my oldest videos a lot. They were bad, real bad. And it's just a matter of like investing in the skills that are gonna give you leverage. So I realized video was incredibly high leverage because I could build a relationship with people asynchronously. So I just made it a habit. I published 2 videos a week to a YouTube channel for 18 months. And outside of like Hector Garcia, maybe a few other people, virtually no one else has done that. So I just started making videos because I realized it was a great way to connect with people, whatever your message was. So I started small, and like all I've done is this YouTube channel for firm owners. We'll see next year if I do, I don't know, more non-accountant facing content. But along the way, like a couple of brands saw my videos and they're like, hey, can you come do some stuff for us? Did some videos for Zapier, did a commercial for like LinkedIn and Zapier, done a couple commercials for companies in our space. So that's been fun. It kind of scratches, I've always had a love of comedy. The media stuff kind of scratches that itch to like create absurd things. So it's a bit of a playground in that regard. Also really curious to hear the story of your firm purchase. Honestly, it was as simple as I added a whole pile of clients to our firm. Not that it was like just me that did all of that, but it got to the point where it was gonna get really cost prohibitive for me to then go and buy a lot of that stuff back later. So I kind of like rushed into it. Wouldn't necessarily recommend that. And it came at a time where we had kind of several partners looking to get out. So everybody always asks me, why not go and do your own thing? Because I do preach that a lot. At the time I had, a kid that was under 12 months old. It was a scary thing. I didn't have the community that I have now. I don't know the things that I know now. If I were to do it again tomorrow, maybe I'd start my own thing. But at the time that was spoopy. Who is March Eternity? It is a Chris Herbishon bot. What's the most valuable automation you've built? What saved you the most time? Oh geez, I don't know where to begin. I think the best automations for most people, the best place to start is with email. Especially in accounting land, you spend so much of your time doing email. If there's something you can do to eliminate 50% of the emails in your inbox, that's probably the best place to start. So as unsexy as it is, inbox rules, knowing those in and out, ensuring the destination for all those things that are emailing you are correct, they're going to the right person, not going to you and then being redirected to someone else. It's probably email automations. I don't know, the more sexy stuff, we built some Airtable automations that automated a bunch of the end of day reconciliation for some dental clinics. We charged a lot of money for that. I don't know, there's just so many, I don't know. Can we do another collab? No. What was one of the best and or the worst decisions you've made in your career? Best. Best, I would say investing in high leverage things when there isn't a clear path to how that's like immediately going to be beneficial for you. So I run an accounting firm. Why would I need to learn video? Like that's a great example. If my job is to oversee people producing tax returns and financial statements, why would I need to learn video? But video ended up opening a whole ton of new doors for me. There's a lot of people in our profession that I really idolized 5 years ago that I had no relationship with that now watch my content and reach out and like, hey, we love what you're doing. And now I'm friends with all those people. I've just built such an amazing network out of this community that has made me so much better. Anyways, and I never could have predicted that when I started investing in video. So best decisions, just invest in high leverage things because it will just make you a higher leverage person that's not trading time for money. Worst decisions? Wanted to know your outlook on hiring overseas CPAs. I'm a big advocate of offshore hiring, huge advocate. Super talented people. Firms get caught up on two things. They think their clients are gonna be spooked by that, and sometimes they are, but usually to a lesser degree than you're expecting. But at the end of the day, that's your decision. That's not your client's decision. Second thing people get hung up on is it changes your business model a little bit to have like a production team that's not client facing. I don't think right now, if you're a small firm, it's a great idea to make those offshore people client facing. When I say offshore, I guess I'm thinking Southeast Asia. There are places that you can offshore where that would be easier to make them client facing, but most are going Philippines or India. So it changes your business model a bit where your onshore people are your client facing sort of relationship managers and the offshore team is like the production team. But even in an onshore model, there's a lot of people that have made that successful, especially as you're doing a number of things for a client. If you're doing CAS and tax and CFO, something like that, best model is usually having like a single relationship manager. So even for onshore firms, that sort of setup makes sense. But I do see that being a stumbling block for people trying to figure out how can they lean into offshore. But if you struggle to hire expertise, like people get like super spooked by this, but like everyone should have offshore staff right now. Like there's not any reason not to. How's it possible that you don't have at least 30K YouTube subscribers? I get this a lot because this is super, super, super niche. Like even people who work in accounting firms, most of them wouldn't be interested in my channel. It's the people who feel they have the ability to make decisions within a firm, like channel's kind of just for them. So it's very niche. Not a ton of those people spending a lot of time on YouTube, I think. Where can we find you on Mastodon after Elmo burns Twitter to the ground? I don't know. I hope Twitter doesn't burn to the ground. Everything I've done for my account community, my YouTube channel, everything has come from the community that we built on Twitter. It'd be really sad if all that went away or became so toxic that nobody wanted to be there anymore. Can you help me start a community? No. What does a typical day look like for you? How much of your day is practice management versus accounting versus content creation? And what time of the day are you most productive? I can start with the last bit. So I've learned different times of the day, I'm better suited for different things. My brain is like on fire the first couple hours of the day. So if I have to do creative things, writing, stuff like that, where other times it could be hard to get yourself to do that, I just gotta sit down and like capitalize on that time. The end of the day, I usually say for the stuff I'm most excited for, it's like the cherry on top of my day, where that time may otherwise be spent on like writing email and that taking 3 times longer than it would earlier in the day. Instead, I save that for like, maybe building an automation that I'm excited about. More kind of exploratory stuff, explorative, that I'm excited for. So when like, 2:30 or 3 rolls around, I'm like, sweet, I get to go do this thing now, rather than like still doing more of the same at like 25% of the efficiency. My days are structured like it's a kind of a balancing act because I'm a big believer in following the thing that you're pumped about at a given time. Like for example, if I am pumped about writing for my podcast, which is like a scripted, fictional, very creative thing, If I'm hot on that, my brain's going off on that, honestly, I'm better off scratching a full day and saying, I'm just gonna write like 3 or 4 podcast episodes, something like that. So I'm a big believer in following where your brain is naturally going, because that's when it's always at its best, and balancing that with structure. I try to build in forcing functions, so I've got a full-time editor. I've now got a guy that's coming and like going to help me with the process of actually shooting and set design and stuff like that. And I have found my obligations to them to keep getting them work to do, stuff like that, is a helpful motivator for me. If I don't sit down and shoot this video right now, my editor is gonna run out of work midway through the week. And without that, maybe I wouldn't sit down and do it. So I don't know, there's like an optimal level of structure while still giving you freedom to pursue what you're excited about at the moment, and then build in accountability for the most important stuff so it's kind of like not optional. Got this from email. There's been a lot of focus on offloading lower priced engagements to become more profitable. Been any thought on how to monetize the lowest tier? Perhaps by reducing client touch points or moving towards self-service. For sure. So not every firm's gonna be positioned to serve the same group of people, right? And inevitably the lowest cost version of firms ought to be the lowest touch, trying to get them to do as much of that work as possible. So you have defined channels where they have to give you everything, and that's not negotiable. They're not allowed to email you thing there, fax you thing there. They've got to do it on Rails. And that's more inconvenient for the client, but the trade-off there is you're the low-cost provider. Now, the most productized version of this is TurboTax. Obviously, TurboTax can't handle everything, but the further down that spectrum you go into low cost, the bigger mainstream platforms are gonna have the best offering, and you can't build something that will match that level of investment. So it is risky to trend downward, for sure. So every year, TurboTax is gonna handle a slightly more complex version of what they did the year before. Now they're doing business tax returns in TurboTax Online. That's just gonna keep coming up market. So if you're creeping down market, it's problematic, right? But that is not to say that you can't build a firm where clients have to give you something on Rails and you have fewer touch points. That's still fine. You just don't want to end up in the same place in the market that a giant player is, like H&R Block or something like that. And I think people generally enjoy the volume stuff less, because the relationship building, keeping a client for 10 years and seeing them mature and you grow with them, like that's fun. There's a lot of personal satisfaction to come from that, rather than like just kind of the mill. The more you feel like a mill, the less space there is for differentiation there, I think. But it's a massive spectrum, right? From fully white glove to TurboTax, there's a big void in between. The main thing is that you know where you are on that spectrum, and that you can communicate to clients where you are on that spectrum and why you're priced the way that you are. I think my problem in the past was, and what I see for most people is, there's just not enough self-awareness to know where they are in that spectrum, or to think that there's like a correct place on that spectrum. There isn't. So you gotta know who you are, have a good reason for like setting up camp there, right? And know how best to communicate that to clients. What happened to Lego Jet Ski Guy? That is a deep cut. So I've got a video series about like how to make better video. I don't even remember. That was like a cutaway to like what you do on your weekends or whatever weird stuff you get up to or something like that. There we go, 3K Q&A. Whoa. 3K Q&A. What a fun little community we've made here, right? I am so appreciative of y'all. It still boggles my mind that I can publish a video, like a week later, 1,000 people have watched it, and 99% of y'all are lurkers. I don't know who you are. Please drop some comments below, not only because it helps the video, but also because my favorite part of doing this is the community around it, is all the rad people that I've met. So I'm hugely thankful for getting to do this, having an outlet for these stupid, silly ideas, while hopefully helping people in the process. So don't be a stranger. There's a subset of you that like watch all these stupid things all the way through, and I super appreciate that. 2023 is gonna be wild. Some big changes coming next year. Good changes for this channel. More to come on that soon. Tee-hee!